Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar hosted by Complete College America. We're just going to give it a few minutes as our colleagues are joining. Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Mala with Complete College America. We're just going to give it a few minutes as we wait for others to join. We'll start here in just about 2 minutes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Complete College America. My name is Monica Mala. I'm the Director of Alliance Relations here at Complete College America, so I'm so happy to be here today to share some of our Alliance's experience in launching adult-focused initiatives on their campus and system-wide. I'm so happy to be joined with some of our national experts in this area who are implementing it, doing research around it, and they too are traveling the country talking about this work and how to do it. Today we have Matt Bergman, Pearl Iboshi, and then Tammy. I am going to mess up your name. I know it. Could you help me out there?
Sure, it's Tammi Oyadomari-Chun.
Okay, perfect. Both Pearl and Tammy are from the University of Hawaii system, and they have taken on this work. I'm happy to share their story with you today because they're doing it in such tangible ways that I think our Alliance members will really benefit from hearing from them. We also have Dr. Matt Bergman. He is our go-to person when it comes to adult learners. He helped develop the Better Deal Game Changer here at Complete College America. So we really can't do these webinars without him sharing his expertise. So with that being said, we're going to go. Matt, did you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody.
Perfect. So with that being said, today I hope to cover kind of 3 areas. Who are our adult students? Both Hawaii and Matt have dug deep into their data and national data to give you a good perspective of who these students are. And then how do we get started? What are some things that we can start doing? Where did the Hawaii system start? Where did Matt start at his institution? This is really meant to be kind of those initial steps to help our states and institutions get started. And then it's your turn to ask our team questions, and hopefully we can kind of get you all going with this strategy and provide you some great resources. This webinar is recorded, so we will be able to share this with you afterwards, and you can share it with your channels. Some quick housekeeping before I hand it over to Matt. You all should have a Q&A symbol on your Zoom screen on the black bar where you can ask questions. You can ask questions throughout this webinar, and we'll make sure we have your question will be answered live at the end of the webinar. So once again, you can use the Q&A feature on your black bar to ask questions. Okay, so now with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Matt.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Friday afternoon. For folks in Hawaii, I'm sorry it's earlier in the day, but when I finish this, I get to go home. So sorry you get to hang around the office for a little while. I'm gonna hit the road and maybe grab a cocktail when I get to the house this evening. So let's get started and let's talk about who these folks are and how they are directly impactful in our work as higher education leaders. First of all, look at this statistic. 35 to 36 million working age Americans have some college but no degree. That is absolutely amazing because I just did a little quick Google search to see what our 2019 total population was in the United States of America. And I would love to have chats there and we could do that, but I'll just tell you, it is 329 million people. What does that amount to with 35 to 36 million of those folks with some college, no degree? Darn near and over 10% of our entire American population have some college, no degree. So that is 1 out of every 10 people is either hiding a secret or living with that barrier or burden that they haven't finished what they started last year or long ago. So we need to keep that in mind, that these people keep this burden or this stigma carrying around with them into boardrooms and beyond. So over 60%, and now it looks like it's close to 65% of jobs will require some sort of college credential. And whether that's an associate's, a high quality certificate, or a bachelor's degree or beyond, all of the jobs that we're seeing based upon what we see from Lumina as well as the Georgetown Workforce Economic Development Center, Anthony Carnevale's shop, is that after the recession, the vast majority of jobs that didn't come back were those that did not require a college degree or some form of associate or certificate. So what we are seeing in that every job added to the economy from this point forward is going to require some form of lifelong learning. And we need to reframe this into this lifelong learning framework, because people are not going to be able to get a degree and then just walk away and not have some sort of professional development or some form of certification to move forward. Also, in basically 5 to 7 years, as I mentioned with the recession, we are facing what is called a demographic cliff. What that means is people did not make as many babies when the economy was bad. During those years, that didn't happen. Therefore, 18 years later, we have a shortage of high school people transitioning to college. So the fight for students and maintaining enrollment is becoming a kind of an arms race. And to meet that demand, we are going to have to dial in and think about these 35 to 36 million people with some college no degree. Next slide there. So I'm going to turn over to Hawaii and talk specifically about what it looks like in the state of Hawaii.
Thank you very much, Matt. This is Pearl Iboshi. The first thing that we did is we looked at the situation in Hawaii and to determine where we were. And so this is our lay of the land look before we start on a big initiative. And what we found is that for Hawaii, almost 25% of our population had some college, no degree, and of 25 to 44-year-olds. So 95,000 people were our target market.
And also we were needing more people to earn degrees to be on track to meet our state attainment goal of 55 by 25.
And we also looked at the wages of our graduates. We have our state longitudinal data system, and we found what our degree earners earn. And what we found is that for a single adult's or survival budget is about $28,000. And those with degrees are, oh, sorry. You do it.
This is just our looking at our returns to education, which is really familiar to all of us, that more education means more higher median income for our residents. The new twist on this is that our local United Way put out what they call the ALICE report, which looks at working poor and identified a survival budget. And so it really takes into account the cost of living. And what we really found here that was troubling is that unless you earn $72,000 for the household of 2 adults, 2 young children, you couldn't make a survival budget. And so for assuming 2 people working, you would need someone to earn, each earning member of the family to earn $36,000, which means you need some kind of college degree to be able to make a survival budget.
So it's back to me, and basically we have to think about how we're going to service this population of people that need some form of credential to get to the jobs and the incomes that they need to have a survival budget and also to thrive in the workforce. So I did a study that looked at every variable that was produced by the literature related to non-traditional and adult students, and basically captured those variables in 3 particular constructs. At the top, you'll see background characteristics or influences, and those are kind of entry characteristics that are non-dynamic. Those are things that people bring to the academic setting when they return. External or environmental influences, and then what we as practitioners and scholars can do for the internal campus environment. So as you'll see, there's a lot of stuff here. And these individual variables have been shown through the literature to produce some significance towards retention to graduation. So we see that age and income and parental education and previous college credits, these folks that walk in our doors have these traits or characteristics already defined. So we have to consider those things as both barriers and also accelerators to get them dialed in and moving forward. What we know about students that are non-traditional or adults is that they're more likely to be first generation, they're more likely to be persons of color, and they're more likely to be older, of course, and have competing responsibilities. So we know that those individual barriers have been shown to impact people's ability to persist. So we have to consider how we're going to adapt to those folks, where oftentimes as a traditional institutions will cater specifically to our high school to college transitioning students, and the vast majority of effort, time, and scholarship go into these individuals. Whereas we think of adults as people that just get it. They should know, they're advanced, they have lived experiences that should be able to navigate this process of joining and persisting through to graduation. But that is not the case. Now, they do not need a lot of warm and fuzzy campus-related activities because of the competing responsibilities that they face, but they do need focused attention and services that are tailored to their needs. And what we see is specific to external environmental influences. When a person is working full-time, as we see work responsibilities, if that is a predictive variable of their ability to persist, we need to find flexible and convenient approaches to getting them back in and through. Also, the finances piece, when I did the study, conceptualized much different than I ever expected. And that is because when we consider non-traditional or adult students, we think about people that are in their early 20s and all the way into their 70s and maybe even 80s. So when we think about that group, they are by no means homogeneous. These people are absolutely different from one another, have a lot of variability in what they are facing and what they're dealing with, and that needs to be taken into consideration because of the demands that they have. That being said, with the finances, a person that is 24, either still living or just recently moved out of their parents' house, they do not have a partner, they do not have children, they do not have a lot of other distinct and challenging barriers. Whereas a person that might be 45 with 4 kids, a single family income, and may make over $100,000, they don't think they have nearly the finances to pay for school as the person that's 20-something that doesn't have as many responsibilities. So the way that variable conceptualized is very important to understand that it is about the competing responsibilities that impact our working adults. And last but not least, the internal campus environment is a key element of how we can make a direct impact on people's ability to make it through. So the enrollment status, all the literature shows, and CCA is really focused on the idea of 15 to finish. And I'll delve a little bit more into this later, but when we think about 15 to finish for a working adult, it just doesn't work. Because there are too many other things going on that are priorities that make it impossible for a person to focus on 5 classes, 5 different faculty members, 5 different books, and get to the finish line that quickly. Now, we can address that through multiple ways, but we have found that compressed schedules, as well as unique and winter session and then summer sessions, we can get students, and I'll talk more distinctly about this, but we can get students to close to 24 credit hours taking 1 class at a time. And if you can find ways to adapt to make sure people get accumulate as many credit hours, but in a very compressed and focused way, you are more likely to get them to the finish line. And last but not least, I'll talk specifically about this, but the prior learning assessment piece is key and crucial, because basically you are acknowledging and honoring the value that these folks bring through their college level and credit-worthy learning that happen outside the confines of the college walls. So we'll talk more about that as we go forward, but keep these variables in mind as you are starting to develop your types of approaches and your marketing for adults.
This is Tammy. When we think about how to get started, the first thing is really to take stock of the assets and the resources that you have in your campus or your system. And they'll be really different depending on a lot of different variables. And so what you have will determine how to get started. When we looked at what a lot of other states were doing, a lot of other states were starting with marketing campaigns. And when we really dug deep, it turned out that that was in part to help identify information about students who are stopped out. So for the University of Hawaii, we have a unified student information system. And so we found that our data about stopped out students from our public institutions is quite robust. So that is an asset for us, and we're able to do a lot of work and get started by using that. So the point is to say that you really need to look at what you have in place to figure out how to proceed. So that includes the kinds of data you have or don't have about your academic records of your stopped out students and contact information for them.
And we were able to work with our foundation to get more updated addresses and email information from our students. So that was really helpful to us as well.
Also, you want to take stock of the readiness of your student support systems and personnel to be able to support your returning students. So to Matt's point about all the factors that impact success of students who return, you really want to look and see to what extent are those supports already in place. What's there, and you can easily plan that into the work that you're doing, the campaign you might be doing to support returning adults, and what needs to be developed to be able to really be successful in supporting students moving forward. Additionally, you really need to look at what's happening with your current or upcoming student success initiatives. So how does this connect with the other work that you're already doing around, say, 15 to finish or guided pathways? So it matters in terms of how to work with staff and in talking about how to prioritize or how to manage a returning adults initiative, and what you can be anticipating or is already available in terms of student supports. And then finally, you want to be able to track your students' progress and the impact of your initiative. So just what do you have available, how easy it is for you to be able to do that.
Well, one of the things that Matt mentioned that we didn't put on this slide, but we really worked on is looking at reorganizing our classes to allow students to take one class at a time at a 5-week period. And so that was also an important change that we really pushed forward on.
Yep. So we knew that because that was coming when we started this work, that was something we would be able to promote shortly. So one of the things about our data, this was a slide that's been evolved actually over time to help us to understand what the number of students who are out there that we can reach. And I say evolved because we've been able to use, based on the questions that were asked about the population of stopped out students, to really refine what we consider to be a stopped out student to build knowledge, information, and support for this initiative. So for the University of Hawaii system, this is our 10 campus public system in Hawaii, we find that there are 32,000 recently stopped out students. So these are students who attended within the last 5 years, were undergraduate degree seeking, but did not earn a degree or certificate, had a permanent address in our state, so we consider residents, earned at least 1 credit, and did not transfer out of the University of Hawaii to another college. So they didn't transfer, and we use the National Student Clearinghouse data to identify that. All these characteristics are really important to helping our campuses understand and our staff understand that these are really students who are part of who didn't go elsewhere. So for example, and who are really out there, we think, in our community with some college, no degree. And then you can see some additional data here, which has been important in our conversations, that many had community college as their last home campus, and many of them have good academic progress. So 61% had left with a 2.0 or better grade point average. So really, as you might imagine, this is to address questions such as, well, did they all leave because they had bad grades? And it'd be really hard for them to recover academic progress. And the answer is some did, but many left in quite good standing. And then this kicker on the bottom is that cumulative credits earned by these 32,000 students is 1 million credits. So we refer to this in the conversations as students left 1 million credits on the table. It's a catchy number, and it also really hits people at home because they know that students paid or had financial aid for 1 million credits, and they also spent quite a lot of effort to enroll and help students to earn those 1 million credits. So Matt, back to you.
So how do we get these folks started, and how do we make sure that we're ready for them? Oftentimes we talk about students as though, are they college ready? And the real question, we should certainly ask that question, but the real question we should be asking is, are we adult student ready? If we recruit these folks back and we fill the coffers with individuals that are non-traditional, are we going to be able to serve them well and to basically create a pathway for them that is not like the losing cause that they fought previously? If we lose them as stop-out students again, what is the likelihood that they are to return? It is not very good, because they already have a little stain on their record where they didn't finish the first time around. And as Pearl and Tammy mentioned, it is non-academic factors that oftentimes moves these folks away from the college setting. It is not always GPA. It is life happening. So we want to know and understand that in a recent study, well, it was 2014 that I did, that I was absolutely certain as an advisor that significant life events would be the overarching theme of the reason people didn't persist. But it did not even fall into the multivariate range of significant prediction. And here's why. Because everybody that is a working adult or a non-traditional student has significant life events happening every day. If we go to the panelists or all of our attendees here on the session, we could go around and we could talk about the significant life events that have occurred in our lives. So we know these things are going to happen, and we have to mitigate them through convenient and flexible approaches. So we have to find ways to create sequencing and compressed formats that are both online, hybrid, and potentially even weekend that will work for these folks. You've got to meet them where they are, and you will have a very captive audience that has a lot of experience and knowledge to bring. The effective and efficient coaching is a key component of this. Our students and our adults often say, we love a single point of contact. We love the one-stop shop because when we have a question about anything, we can go to that person. We know whether or not they can answer it, they're going to help us find an answer. The flexible course options and degree completion programs are such that we are growing these ways of getting people to the finish line through interdisciplinary studies, general business, organizational leadership, and so many other particular disciplines that are going to acknowledge and honor additional PLA, as well as create project-based courses that are relevant, rigorous, and research-based. And then as far as developing trust with cooperation with organizations and partnerships, we can partner with our industry partners in our communities all day long because they want our graduates, but they also want to send their incumbent workers back for additional training. And if we can get those pathways clear and manageable, this is a total win-win for both groups, because they will send tuition assistance and we will send hopefully high quality graduates that can hit the ground running. And one of the last but not least piece is prior learning assessment and lowering the cost. With prior learning assessment, if that is acknowledged and given, we can cut costs, we can get them there more efficiently, and we can partner with our organizations and either have compressed or focused tuition discounting with volume. So know that there are ways to skin this cat if you already haven't done it, but we have to be more adult student ready than say, are they college ready? Stop that frame of mind and work towards getting ready for these folks. Because in my experience, and I'm sure Tammy and Pearl would reflect this, the people that come back, if they are engaged with active, relevant, and focused content that makes sense to their real world, they're going to perform at a very high level. We're always going to have students that don't do perfectly well no matter what. But the vast majority that do come back, if you engage them correctly, they will thrive and they will make your institution look good because they're already well placed and they're possibly quick donors back to the institution if they have a great experience.
So to Matt's point about are we adult student ready, that's a question we had to ask ourselves. And I put here a quote from a student who we reached out to who was interested in returning and did not return. And it was basically she said, I had a really bad experience. I'll let you read it yourself. Student had a really bad experience because we were not sufficiently adult student ready. And it really has gotten everyone's attention. When I share this quote in meetings, people always think that it might be their campus because we all feel a little bit, concerned about the extent to which we're adult student ready. So that is a real issue. But you can't wait for everything to be perfect. And so how do you take steps? Some of the steps that we've taken are really using our data for analysis and reporting, really mining the data. We've done a lot, rather than do a really big, giant campaign with public service announcements and in the community and such. We've really focused on targeted campaigns through our data mining. So for example, we just ran a mini campaign this past summer for fall enrollment of students who were stopped out and had 6 credits or left remaining in their degree pathway. So this is really using our multiple sources of data to identify students who are really close to degree. We offered them a small scholarship. I guess the term nowadays is a micro scholarship to return. And we got some students back who are going to graduate this fall. So really like small campaigns to really learn different things about our student population. We've also learned that when we do some of these targeted marketing campaigns, and you can see some of the collateral on the slide, that we actually have quite a good open rate on our emails. So when we do a campaign, we send emails to all the email addresses we have for the students on record, and we do multiple emails, and we find that 50% of those we're trying to reach open at least one of the emails that we send, which we think from a marketing view is pretty fantastic and means that people are interested in hearing from the university, even if they're not currently enrolled. So these are the kinds of things we've learned from these smaller campaigns to try to build out the work. We also did a Shark Tank for student support innovations and asked campuses to identify supports that they needed to build up so that they were more student-friendly, adult student-friendly. So this fall, for example, a couple campuses are doing a program where they have evening childcare for school-age students while they have all the support services available once a week on campus. And the students' portion is childcare, but it's also homework help, and they call it Kids College as a way to try to introduce college to children of our adult student parents. Additionally, as Pearl mentioned earlier, developing new accelerated online learning options. Like Matt said, we can get 24 credits a year. Students take that one class at a time through this model. We have a new scholarship for those who have financial need for direct costs, working on our professional learning community across campuses of our returning adults, and really doing a deep dive on a hurdle for students who are stopped out and who would like to return. So really doing a deep dive on their financial obligations, which is a common barrier to return across different colleges. So Matt, back to you.
All right, thank you very much. So now we kind of move forward to the strategies that are a little more in the weeds, and that is specifically wraparound services once we've got these folks identified, re-engaged, and plugged back in. For programs that are focused on adults that want to acknowledge and honor some of that credit that they bring in a prior experience, we do prior learning assessment at the University of Louisville, and I know University of Hawaii System is also working on this. This is becoming more and more of a norm where over 50% of institutions across the United States are using some form of prior learning assessment. So whether that's CLEP or DSST, challenge exams, portfolio credit, American Council on Education, we are finding ways to use this experience towards college credit. And it's important to note that this credit is not given for experience alone. It is vetted and evaluated by high-level national organizations as well as institutional faculty. Whether that's done through the College Board and CLEP, or the American Council on Education, or faculty committees on prior learning assessment via portfolio. So there are a lot of ways to look at and evaluate and quantify the experiences outside the confines of the college walls. So next slide. So we do this at the University of Louisville one specific way, and this is done in a lot of ways across the United States, but we do a 3-credit-hour course that is in essence a orientation plus evaluation and reflective observation of your own experience and evolution in the workforce, and then a portfolio development. Oftentimes these portfolios amount to more than 100 pages. Now there are forms and there are validating documents. So this is not all writing, but it is validating documents alongside learning narratives that demonstrate the college level and creditworthiness of that learning. That occurs by doing the narratives after producing a life learning narrative or work autobiography. And I compare the process of putting the prior learning assessment documents together such that you are walking into Walmart or Target or any kind of shopping center, and you look to your side and you see a claw machine. Claw machine's full of all these stuffed animals, right? Well, your life is full of all these stuffed animals or experiences. So we are going in through the process and extracting pieces and parts. So you got a Batman and you got a Minion and you got a teddy bear, whatever it is, we're pulling pieces and parts and putting those together to identify and create validating documents alongside life learning narratives for a portfolio that's worth up to 48 college credit hours. Now, it's important to note that these credits are not given for experience alone and are not given oftentimes for major credit. We also don't do the portfolio for general education. We reserve that for CLEP and DSST and any AP courses that the student would have taken as a traditional age student. So this is focused on oftentimes elective-based credit that will help bridge the gap to the 120 credit hours required. Tammy, I saw what happened there. I saw that face you made when I made the reference to the claw machine. I bet I got that from the other attendees as well. Something I heard at the Kale conference last year has stuck with me, and it's really important that we don't do this forever and ever. And that is, we discriminate on what you know based upon where you learned it. So if a person has a credit or a class from Harvard, we think that is just the cat's meow. But if they have a credit from a community college, we start to question that. And oftentimes when you transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year institution, those credits are not always portable and usable towards the 4-year degree. And that's something we have to change, because a college class is a college class. While they may have varying levels of difficulty, they were certified and evaluated as college level. And now, we have 4 reasons specifically that every single one of you at your college and universities ought to be considering the use of prior learning assessment. And these are that it is empirically proven by the Council on Adult and Experiential Learning through their 2010 study. It was a 48 institution study that showed your rate and your pace to graduation if you had access to PLA is higher. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you have access, go back one. If you have access to PLA, you are more likely to get to graduation and you're more likely to get there quicker. So that study is being replicated and it's happening right now. There are over 70 institutions involved, and that will be a 2019-2020 study that will be published. So we'll see if those findings hold. Next, students are more engaged when they involve or engage in prior learning assessment evaluation, whether that be a test out, a challenge exam, or a portfolio process. They are now immersed and engaged in being in academics. So they're an adult learner and they're ready to roll. Instead of being unprepared now, they are excited and engaged because of the acknowledgement and value that they have been given by the institution. Also, this is the most counterintuitive point, and that is students that access PLA take 9.9 more credits than those that don't. So I said the rate and pace by which people graduate is quicker, then how in the world are they taking more credit? Well, it's because the retention rate for adult learners is very low. Therefore, if you retain these folks at a higher level, you actually produce more credit hours. You produce more revenue for the institution because you are not losing them at the same clip that you were previously, that has been demonstrated throughout the literature for years and years and years. And last but not least, and that is PLA is not always and not often awarded for major credit. So when you go into a discipline, faculty can't say, well, you're taking away the classes that I teach and the discipline that I have engaged in and studied. We don't often do that. We focus in on elective general education type of credits, and we try and root those people in a discipline so that they are prepared and ready to move forward in their academic trajectory. So, as we move forward with adults, here are some keys when we go and we consider these comebackers. We have to find the right match. So whether that's a program, an institution, or some place that is adult friendly, the relevant content equals persistence. There's literature out there, and the study that I have done has shown that if a person sees that it is both active and relevant, they are more likely to persist to graduation because they see value and they see growth in themselves. We can connect to lots of scholarships as a result of that because they are focused on workforce development, industries and work roles that are pushing forward. And then next, transfer articulation. This is a key component. If one logs on and tries to enroll at an institution and a quarter of their credits are acknowledged, they need to look at another school. That's all there is to it, because when a person does a college course, they should have value for that to move forward into whatever degree they go into. Now, if they switch disciplines, obviously it's going to take a little more time, but to the amount that things can fall into elective credit or specific areas that cover degree requirements, students really need to be valued and honored for the credit that they've already accumulated. Next is innovative programming, and that's what Hawaii obviously is doing, and we're trying to do at the University of Louisville as well. Whether it's traditional online, and I love to say traditional online because that is now a phrase that has not been around that long, because we used to think of online as very innovative, but traditional online, it's been around for a very long time. So we're evolving that into competency-based education, hybrid approaches, flip the classroom. There are so many things that we're doing that are really innovating the process to try and re-engage these folks. So whether it's cohort, executive format, hybrid, we need to find ways that meet the people where they are. As I mentioned, prior learning assessment must be a component within your degree. Whether it's 6 hours or 48 hours or whatever, somewhere in between, we should try and find a way to keep these people from taking bowling or healthy lifestyles or some class that may not be perfectly suited for what they're trying to do as they move forward in their work life. And last but not least, the reputation for institutions is key, and that is that you are at a regionally accredited institution where if you either don't finish or you get to graduation, your transfer credits will go wherever, or your degree will be valued so you can move forward into higher levels of education. So whether that's community college or four-year schools, the regional accreditation is a key element in all of this. And I think that is something that we need to discuss and push forward as we move forward and becoming more adult friendly. So we'll leave it to you now for questions, and we'll pipe Monica back in, and she could facilitate this process.
Hello, everyone. Okay, thank you so much to our great experts. Looks like we do have a question. Let's go to that really quickly. Okay, can you talk a little bit about how long it took your institutions to be student ready and before you started reaching out to adults?
So we started reaching out to adults, I think, before we were ready, and which is why we got that comment from the student where we had sent out emails saying, come back, you only have this many credits left, but we really had not fixed some of the internal pieces. But that helped us a lot because we learned what we needed from the students that did come back, and then some from those that did not come back. So I think it was helpful. But I don't know if even now we feel like we're totally ready, but definitely it took us about a year, and we feel like we're almost ready.
Yeah, I think we're more ready, which is why we keep doing these little iterations in terms of different kinds of campaigns. So we have a go slow to go fast approach where we're still in the slow part. But we didn't think we could wait until everything was perfectly ready. So we're just matching our outreach to our support at this point. And let me mention one more thing that we recently learned, which is also really important. Actually, I just did a look at the data this morning about this issue. So one of the assumptions we had when we went in was that students would want to restart what they left off with. So basically they'd go back to the same home campus and continue in the same major. And it turns out that only 29% of our students who returned in fall 2017 returned to the same campus and same major, which means that, and that impacts a lot of things about the support they need when they return so that they can be successful. And it came out of our conversations with counselors and their questions and assumptions about what's needed. So part of what being student friendly is understanding what our assumptions are and then checking that against the data and what students say themselves to make sure that we're oriented around the reality of students, not just our assumptions.
And from my perspective, we at the University of Louisville are only student ready, adult student ready in certain pockets of the institution. It's not a university-wide initiative to really welcome and focus on adults. There are certain majors that are incredibly rigid in the approach that they have to recruiting students. That includes engineering and our College of Business. And that's absolutely no knock on them, but it just boils down to the fact that we have our own foci, and that is true for every institution, I'm sure, in the Hawaii system, as well as institutions across the nation. We have to become a little more specialized. You think about the medical profession, how many specialists do you have to see to get a direct answer on some individual component in your body? I mean, we have to, as institutions, really focus on our areas of expertise and strength and start to leverage those and attract the right people. We are great in the organizational leadership program. We've been doing it for over 40 years now, and we've been catering to working adults for a long time. So we've had many iterations of how we've approached it. We've evolved from traditional online to additional hybrid options, and we've incorporated PLA and adapted and edited along the way. So I would again say we're probably not all the way there as an institution, and I don't think that's true for anybody in the Commonwealth, but we are trying to find ways and pockets for where people can excel and find their spot.
Thank you, Matt. So we have another question here. Who has been your biggest champions and biggest doubters? How have you won over faculty and others who haven't bought in to focus on adults?
So I'll start that one, and I'll just say that our biggest champions were our biggest doubters. Because when we started talking about prior learning assessment, they thought we were trying to give credit away. And we as a program in 2007 became a focused degree completion program for the state of Kentucky and a pillar for that effort. And what we saw is we started in the campus community and developed relationships so that we were not the place where if someone couldn't succeed, they would send them to us. And we started talking about the discipline and the project-based work, and we won a lot of people over on campus. Then we focused our effort on the community and the Louisville metro region, where we have close to 96,000 people with some college and a degree. And we won over our external constituents in the region. And then we went broad and national, and we started connecting with the military population as well as our continuing professional organizations. And we've received some awards as a result of that effort, but we build it from an internal campus community effort and then broadened out and found our way. And what we found is the doubters that we had oftentimes become our biggest advocates, because they, once you engage with those folks, and I'm sure Pearl and Tammy will reflect that, when you get into the weeds with those folks and talk about the details of how you're going to engage them, they become huge advocates because they see the value that these adults bring. Because the minute you have an adult in your classroom that is really engaged, you're like, oh my gosh, they are like way better than the traditional age students sometimes. So we're really happy to have them, and I want to get more of those folks in there.
So for Hawaii, I think we've had champions in our system leaders. They've been really supportive and of the effort. Getting into the weeds has been really important in building support from those. It's not so much that they were doubters. I think it just was something that they hadn't focused on before, specifically returning adults. And so it's been a process of helping shape their understanding, or our understanding, of who the returning adults are and what they need. And so that's been quite important, to be patient and also to be continuing to evolve our understanding. So when you saw the data, we keep working through the data to answer questions about, is this what our returning adult is like? And then use the data to inform that understanding.
Some of the things that we did, I think, really helped and gender support and throughout the campus communities. I think the Shark Tanks were interesting because what happened is groups of people that normally don't get together, the student affairs people and the academic affairs people, got together to build proposals, and that I think really helped them understand better and get a feel for their campus, what can be done. And so I think that really made a difference as well.
Yes, putting out some of the funding made for, say, the Shark Tank made a difference because it provided some focused energy and effort specifically to returning adults. And then also we've done these small scholarships, and that in addition to being a support for students and perhaps an incentive for students, our counselors are very motivated to help students get scholarships. So that was also important in engaging the counselors at all of our campuses as well.
Okay, we have another question. Any recommendations as to where to get started?
So I'll jump in and just say, reflect what Pearl and Tammy said about engaging the system level advocates, because obviously they have the influence. So if your system level advocates start to either pour money or resources into your work, there is no doubt that you'll be able to make some progress. That being said, if you do not have that system level support, you go directly to the spots on campus where you are having some best practices. So in other words, do you have some places on campus that serve adults well, some degrees that are focused or accommodating of adults? Start with those and build those up and show success, and you'll see where the money follows. You may be able to recruit more disciplines to come on board and become more adult friendly.
I think the slide we had earlier about getting started is my advice, which is take stock of what you have. So we had system leadership support as one of our key starter assets. And so that was something that we worked with, and we also had a lot of data. So that gave us a good place to start, but you have something different. You might have a great advocate for PLA, prior learning assessment at your campus, or you might have a completion degree ready to go. Both of those are not something that we had at the beginning, so that it wasn't something to build off of. That was something we had to build towards. So you really got to see what you have, and you might have great marketing assets, or you might have great relationships with community-based organizations. You just got to build off of what you have.
We have not in Hawaii done a big campaign. We have one planned, but we felt after our small outreach efforts to students, we felt that we weren't ready to say to the state, come, we're ready for you, and to work with business partners to have them bring people in. But we're very close to that point. But that really, for us, has been something we're moving towards, and we have not done just because we felt the internal supports weren't there.
And internal support, and let me just say, internal supports meaning having all of those student supports ready, and not just because we're doing a better job with student success overall, but specifically ones that address the needs of returning adults. And so I think Matt had a slide about a lot of the different kinds of factors that contribute to successful adult completion, and really looking at that, setting those up takes a lot of people. It takes some policy work, takes culture work, takes training up and engaging individuals. So there's a lot that could be done, should be done, and we're still trying to put as much in place as we think will help us be able to be successful when we do a big outreach.
Tammy, I really loved what you said. You had to identify what you could build on, and then identify those things that you could build towards. Because as we know, with our returning adult population, there's so many things that we need to do to really be, as Matt said, adult student ready, that it can be really overwhelming. But if we're building on things that we have and we can continue that momentum, it's a lot easier to win some of that buy-in from people who may not have been bought in before. So thank you. So with that, we only have 5 more minutes. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds for another question. But as we're doing that, thank you so much to Matt, Tammy, and Pearl for taking their time today and beforehand preparing these slides and sharing your expertise with our Alliance. Matt is, like I said, our national expert kind of on staff as a great partner to us, and obviously gives a great overview of what's happening nationally and at his institution in regards to adult learners. And of course, Hawaii in general, Pearl and Tammy have been great partners to CCA when it comes to really doing this work and doing it well and starting with data. So thank you all so much for being here today. I don't see any more questions. So with that, thank you all for joining us today. This webinar will be recorded and we will send it out to all of our attendees and to our Alliance members so you can share with your networks. Thank you again, Matt, Pearl, and Tammy.